1954. A kitchen in Columbus, Ohio. Black coffee on the stovetop and cool linoleum under bare feet. A woman in a cotton house dress who weighs the same at 40 as at 20. No gym, no calorie counter, no app. She knew things that were buried the moment someone figured out how to sell a replacement. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how she did it and why it works. Mid-century American women stayed slim on a fraction of what women spend today. Not because they had more willpower or better genetics, but because they had a complete system that no one had yet figured out how to monetize. This video opens with an original deep dive into the forgotten world of over-the-counter diet pills and appetite suppressants marketed directly to 1950s housewives, the moment when the weight loss industry realized it could sell women a pill for a problem they had already solved for free. After that deep dive, 5 recovered practices follow. The unspoken weight rules every 50s woman followed without obsessing. Then the centerpiece of this entire compilation, the vanished breakfast rituals that kept a generation of women slim without counting a single calorie. Meals so simple and so effective that a modern diet industry worth over $70 billion a year had to be constructed on top of their disappearance. If you watch only one segment in this video, make it that one. Then vanished summer foods that kept women cool and lean when the temperature climbed. The Jack LaLanne home fitness rules that every housewife followed in her living room without a single piece of equipment. And the Betty Crocker diet dessert recipes that let women eat something sweet after dinner and still keep their figure. 6 recovered practices, 1 continuous arc, everyone erased for the same reason. By the early 1950s, pharmaceutical companies identified the American housewife as the most profitable customer in weight loss. Amphetamine pills like Dexedrine and Obitrol were prescribed freely by doctors and advertised in the same magazines that ran cake recipes on the facing page. A 1970 FDA review found that by 1962, roughly 8 billion amphetamine tablets were manufactured annually in the United States. Housewives were the largest consumer group. When the FDA restricted amphetamines in 1971, the industry did not give women back what they already knew. It sold them something new. Number 15. The foundation garment. Every woman in America wore a girdle, not to look thin, to know, against her own body, every single morning if anything had shifted. The big names in the 50s were Playtex, Gossard, Maidenform, and Formfit. The hooks fastened at the side. The elastic panel pulled flat across the abdomen. The garters hung down for stockings. She stepped into that garment every morning the way she brushed her teeth. Without thinking, without debating. The hourglass silhouette of the decade depended on what was underneath the dress. You could not get the fit on the outside without the correct foundation beneath. A woman who gained 3 pounds felt it at 7 in the morning. The girdle registered change the way a thermostat registers heat. Immediately, silently, without commentary. She did not need an app to tell her what she already felt against her own ribs. That garment was the oldest biofeedback device in the world, and it cost $2. But the girdle only told her what changed. What kept it from changing in the first place started at the table, and it started with the plate itself. Number 14. The 9-inch plate. Her dinner plate was 9 inches across. That was standard. Think of the vintage Homer Laughlin Fiesta dishes or classic mid-century earthenware. All 9 inches. A pork chop, a scoop of mashed potatoes, a serving of green beans. It looked full. It was full. Today, the average American dinner plate is 12 inches, nearly 30% bigger. Cornell found that switching from a 12-inch plate to a 10-inch plate cut food consumption by 22%. She never had to switch. She never left. No one measured a portion in that kitchen. The plate did it for them. The plate has grown 3 inches since then. The waistline followed. Number 13. The penny scale at the drugstore. She did not own a bathroom scale. Almost nobody did. She weighed herself at the drugstore once a week for 1 cent. Those penny scales stood like sentries across the American landscape. Big, heavy, stable. Just tall enough that a child felt grown standing on one. Peerless and National Scale Company produced hundreds of thousands of them during the Depression. A 1937 Commerce Department report stated it plainly. These machines were the principal means by which 130 million Americans tracked their weight. She stepped on during errands between the pharmacy counter and the magazine rack. She dropped a penny in the slot, and the metal shade moved aside to reveal the number. Some machines gave horoscopes on the ticket. Some printed photos of Hollywood stars. 1 cent, one number, once a week. She checked her weight the way she checked the weather, briefly, without drama, and then moved on. Today, a bathroom scale costs $40 and connects to an app that sends notifications. She spent a penny and forgot about it until next Tuesday. But what kept her steady between those Tuesday weigh-ins had nothing to do with willpower. It had to do with a rule so absolute that breaking it was barely conceivable. Number 12. 3 meals and a closed kitchen. There were 3 meals: breakfast, dinner, and supper. Between meals, the kitchen was closed. Snacking between meals was almost unheard of. No granola bars in the pantry. No bag of chips on the counter. No yogurt cups in the refrigerator door. The refrigerator itself was small. 7 or 8 cubic feet. Half the size of a modern one. It held what was needed for the day and nothing more. A child who asked for food between meals was told to wait. The massive, dedicated supermarket snack aisle we know today did not exist. The concept of a snack as a daily entitlement did not exist. The kitchen had hours, like a bank, open 3 times a day, closed in between. No one called it intermittent fasting. They called it Tuesday. Number 11. Housework that burned 1,000 calories. She did not exercise. She kept house. And keeping house in 1955 was a full-body endurance event that no modern gym replicates. A study from the women's magazine Prima found that 50s housewives burned over 1,000 calories a day doing housework. Today, the average is roughly 560. That is nearly 500 fewer calories burned every single day. Most households had a washer by then, but many still had no dryer. That meant wringing wet bed sheets by hand, hanging every piece on the line in the yard, scrubbing a kitchen floor on hands and knees with spick and span at 29 cents a can, beating a rug with a wire beater out in the backyard, ironing a man's dress shirt one section at a time, the collar, the cuffs, the yoke, the placket, each section a separate pressing. That is why meals in that era could be so rich: butter, cream, lard in the pie crust. And women still had small waists. Their daily calorie expenditure was enormous. She never once called it a workout. She called it Monday. And Monday burned more than an hour on a modern treadmill. What connects these first 5 items is not discipline. It is architecture. The plate, the garment, the closed kitchen, the physical labor, the weekly penny check. None of these were choices a woman made each morning. They were systems she lived inside. In 1955, roughly 9% of the American population was classified as obese. Today, that number is over 40%. The total weight loss market in this country reached $90 billion in 2023 alone. $90 billion spent solving a problem that barely existed when the tools cost pennies and had no brand name. The difference between then and now is not willpower. It is that every one of those systems has been dismantled and replaced with a product. Number 10. The vinegar tonic before supper. A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a cup of warm water. It was taken 20 minutes before the evening meal. Heinz apple cider vinegar cost 23 cents a bottle. The sharp tang rose from the cup. A faint wince followed, then a sip of plain water to clear the taste. Not every woman did this, but the ones who did learned it from their mothers, who learned it from theirs. No label on the bottle mentioned weight. No one filed a patent. It curbed the appetite slightly, settled the stomach, and cost less than a penny per use. It was not a remedy with a name. It was just something you did before supper, the way you put on an apron before cooking. A habit so small it barely registered. Today, the same practice is sold as a $60 supplement in a capsule with a celebrity on the label. The vinegar has not changed. The price has. Number 9. Walking to 3 different shops. She did not drive to one big supermarket. She walked to the butcher, the baker, the grocer, separately, often daily. With shops spread across the neighborhood, a woman walked more. Home to store, basket filled, then back again. 1 car per family, and he drove it to work. She carried groceries in a paper sack held against her hip. 2 miles round trip to the A&P. 1 mile to the butcher on Elm Street. Another mile to the bakery for tomorrow's bread. No pedometer, no step counter, no walking shoes. Flat-soled house shoes on pavement. The same ones she wore to hang laundry. She walked 3 to 5 miles a day and never once thought of it as exercise. It was called getting the groceries. There was no word for what she was doing because there did not need to be one. The errand was the workout. The neighborhood was the gym. The paper sack was the weight. Nobody sold her that. And what she brought home from those shops was governed by a rhythm so natural she could not have told you where she learned it. Number 8. Sunday was dessert day. Pie, cake, and cobbler were for Sunday. After church. At the dining table. Not Tuesday night, not Thursday afternoon, not 11 at night, standing at the refrigerator in the dark. Desserts in the 50s were modest. A small bowl of canned fruit was more common than anything elaborate. A slice of pie on a 6-inch plate. A scoop of vanilla ice cream from a hand-cranked maker. Sara Lee pound cake, frozen, sliced thin. A Jell-O mold with canned fruit cocktail set the night before. Sugar existed in that household. It was welcomed, but it was an event. It had a time and a place. It was not a background frequency humming through every hour of every day. Sugar was not the enemy. It was Sunday. And the distance between Sunday and the rest of the week was all the portion-control dessert ever needed. Nobody counted the sugar in the pie. Nobody needed to. The calendar did it for them. Number 7. The posture rule. She stood up straight. Not as a choice, but as a trained reflex installed before she was 10 years old. A book balanced on the head. A mother's hand pressed between the shoulder blades. Stand up straight. Repeated until it was automatic. Shoulders back. Chin level. Abdomen pulled in. Sitting at the edge of the chair, never the back. Crossing ankles, not legs. The muscles required to hold that posture were engaged all day long. The deep abdominals, the spinal erectors, the pelvic floor, active from breakfast to bedtime, without a single exercise being named. A woman who slouched looked heavier than she was and drew judgment before she spoke. The posture was not about weight, but the muscles it required were doing work that a modern woman pays $40 a month to replicate in a Pilates class. The difference is that the 50s woman never left the house to do it. She did not change into different clothes for it. She did not drive to it or schedule it or track it on a phone. She just held herself upright because someone told her to when she was 7, and she never stopped. Number 6. Cooking from scratch as daily labor. Every meal was built from raw ingredients, not assembled, not reheated, built. Peeling potatoes, trimming a roast, snapping green beans by hand over a colander, kneading bread dough on a floured board, rolling a pie crust with a wooden pin. In the early 50s, so soon after the war, when food had been rationed, commercial diet products barely existed. TV dinners appeared by 1954, but they were a novelty, not a way of life. A woman who served a Swanson dinner without a good reason was considered to have surrendered something. The labor of cooking regulated what went into the food. The woman who made it knew every ingredient, by name, by measure, by feel. A tablespoon of Crisco, not a cup. She knew because her hands were in it. The preparation itself burned calories, the standing, the stirring, the kneading, the carrying of a cast iron pan from burner to table. An hour in that kitchen was not nothing. It was work the body registered, even if the mind never once framed it that way. Notice what is absent from every item on this list so far. No one is counting, no one is restricting, no one is performing discipline for an audience. These practices were invisible, built into the texture of a day that had too much real work in it to leave room for obsession. The weight stayed off not because she fought her body. It stayed off because the life she lived left no gap for the weight to enter. Number 5. The cottage cheese and canned peach lunch. When a woman ate lunch alone, it was cottage cheese on a lettuce leaf with a canned peach half. This was universal. Seal test cottage cheese at 19 cents. A leaf of iceberg lettuce. 1/2 of a Del Monte canned peach, drained, placed face down on the cheese. A glass of iced tea, unsweetened. Maybe a rye crisp cracker on the side at 12 cents a box. Every women's magazine, from McCall's to Good Housekeeping, ran this plate once a season like it was news. It was never news. Every woman already knew. 300 calories. No recipe required. She did not call this a diet meal. She called it lunch. The distance between those two words matters more than you think. One is a woman who eats. The other is a woman performing control for someone else's benefit. She was not on a program. She was not in a phase. She was not tracking macros or logging her intake into an app that would grade her at the end of the day with a color and a number. She was just a woman who had things to do after noon, and the cottage cheese kept her going until supper without weighing her down. That was the entire calculation. It fit on a lettuce leaf. But food was only half of it. The other half was what happened when the clothes started telling a different story. Number 4. Clothes were altered, not replaced. When a skirt grew tight, she did not buy a new one. She sat down with a sewing basket and let out the seam, a 1/4 inch. A Singer's sewing machine on a table in the spare room. A pin cushion shaped like a tomato. A seam ripper. A tape measure draped around the neck. She could feel a 1/4 inch of change in a waistband, the way a carpenter feels a board that is not level. That 1/4 inch was a private conversation between her body and her sewing basket. No mirror, no audience. She let the seam out for the season. She took it back in after. Dresses cost $3 to $8. A good one lasted 5 years. You did not throw it away because it got tight. You adjusted. The sewing basket was her warning system, her correction, and her privacy all in one. A needle, a thread, and a 1/4 inch. There was no shame in the letting out. The shame, if it came at all, was quiet and domestic and entirely between her and the fabric. It did not involve a before photo. It did not involve a comment section. It was information, privately received, privately acted on. The modern equivalent costs $200 a month and arrives with a coach who has never met you. Number 3. No one ate standing up. Eating was done at a table, not in the car, not on the sidewalk, not in front of the television. The kitchen table with a cloth on it, or the dining table on Sunday. A chair pulled out, a napkin, silverware, a glass of water or milk already poured. Even a sandwich eaten alone at noon was placed on a plate at a table with a napkin in her lap. A 50s soft drink was 7 ounces. Today, the standard is more than 4 times that size. A burger weighed under 4 ounces. Today, it often runs 12 or more. A meal had a beginning, a middle, and an end. One location. When the plate was empty, the meal was over. You stood up, you cleared. Sitting down forced a woman to notice what she ate, how much she ate, and when she was finished. Standing up removes all 3. That is not an accident. Neither is the fact that every fast food restaurant ever built was designed around the assumption that you would not sit down, that you would eat in the car, at the counter, on the way to somewhere else. Movement and distraction are not neutral conditions. They are an environment engineered to make you eat more than you meant to. She never had a name for what she was protected from. She just sat down. She put a cloth on the table. She poured the water before she was thirsty. The ritual slowed the eating before the first bite was taken. That slowness was the point. Not a wellness strategy, just a table, a chair, and the basic dignity of stopping to eat like a person. Number 2. The fitted dress that told the truth. She kept one fitted dress in the closet, not her best dress, not her Sunday dress, the one she tried on when she needed an honest answer. A shirtwaist, a pencil skirt with a side zipper. A cotton house dress with buttons down the front, bought in 1953 and kept for a decade. She stepped into it the way a pilot checks instruments before takeoff. Quickly, without sentiment, looking for one answer. Did it close? If the zipper pulled at the hip, she adjusted the week, not the dress. If the buttons strained at the waist, she cut the second slice of bread at supper. No scale, no chart, no weigh-in, just a zipper that either closed or did not. The dress did not negotiate. It did not offer a range. It did not congratulate or console. It was the most honest object in the house. It asked nothing of her except to be straight with herself, and then it hung back in the closet until it was needed again. No subscription, no battery, no notification. A woman who trusted a zipper more than a number understood something important, something the modern fitness industry has spent 70 years trying to obscure. The body already knows. It has always known. Number 1. She never called it a diet. None of this had a name. There was no program, no subscription, no 30-day challenge, no before and after photograph. She lived inside a set of habits that kept her. She could not have explained them any more than she could have explained how she breathed. The adult obesity rate in America increased by over 200% between 1950 and the year 2000. In 1959, a product called Metrocal arrived on store shelves, initially introduced as a powder mixed with water before the liquid version hit the market. It promised effortless weight loss. That was the turn. That was the exact moment someone discovered there was money in the gap between a woman and her own body. Everything on this list was free. The garment, the plate, the walk, the closed kitchen, the dress, all of it free. And free does not generate revenue. So an industry was built It named what she already did. It complicated what was already simple. It sold her a solution to a problem she did not have. Today, that industry is worth over $135 billion a year in America alone. She never once stood in front of a mirror and said the word diet. She never weighed a portion. She never downloaded a plan. She fastened her girdle, cooked her food, walked her errands, buttoned her dress, and lived. She was not behind. She was not naive. She was the last generation of women in this country who managed their bodies without being taught to hate them first. The rules were never written down because they were never selling anything. The moment they needed a name was the moment they had already been replaced. Somewhere tonight, a woman steps on a digital scale synced to an app on a subscription that costs $14.99 a month to learn what a $2 girdle and a 9-inch plate already told her grandmother for free. The rules were quiet, steady, built into the way a woman moved through her day without ever calling it a diet. But the discipline was only half of it. What she put on the table every single morning mattered more than any rule she followed. And that is where this story changes completely. She never had to think twice about it, because the thinking had already been done for her once, and it stuck for life.
Number 7, the cottage cheese and canned fruit plate. Women ate a scoop of cottage cheese with a few rings of canned pineapple or a single peach half. That was it. They called it a reducing plate. It appeared on the cover of every women's magazine from 1952 to 1965. Breakstone's cottage cheese or Sill test, cold from the icebox, the wet, grainy curds against a chilled plate, a single canned peach half from Del Monte, syrup drained off, placed cut side down, maybe a leaf of iceberg lettuce underneath for presentation, sometimes a sprinkle of paprika on the cottage cheese for color. 43 cents for the cottage cheese, 29 cents for the can of peaches. The whole breakfast cost under a quarter per serving. McCall's and Ladies' Home Journal printed the reducing plate as a standing recommendation month after month. Beauty columns in the newspaper recommended it by name. It was the breakfast you saw in doctor's office, waiting rooms on charts next to the height and weight table. The portion was small enough to fit on a bread plate. That was the point. She did not need a macro calculator or a tracking app. She needed a bread plate and the willingness to stop there. That discipline had a name back then. It was called being a grown woman. That cottage cheese plate looks almost comical by today's standards. But the breakfast that came before it, the one already waiting on the counter when she sat down, built an entire ritual that modern science is only now beginning to confirm. Number 6, the half grapefruit ritual, a half grapefruit eaten before the rest of breakfast, or as the entire breakfast. No sugar on top, eaten with a serrated grapefruit spoon. Ruby red from the Rio Grande Valley, or a white marsh grapefruit, more tart, less forgiving. Cut across the middle, not top to bottom. Every American kitchen drawer had the same spoon, the one with the pointed serrated tip made for nothing else. The burst of juice when the spoon broke through the membrane, the sharp, sour bite on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, a napkin tucked under the plate to catch the drip. 5 cents a grapefruit in 1953. The Hollywood diet of 1930 had already made it famous, but by the 50s it was no longer a fad. It was a habit. Millions of women started every morning this way for decades. The old theory was that grapefruit enzymes burned fat. The reality, now confirmed by clinical research, is simpler. The fiber and water filled her up before the real meal arrived. Clinical studies, including a notable one from 2012, have found that eating half a grapefruit before meals can significantly reduce overall calorie intake and even aid in weight loss. She ate less afterward, not because she was told to, but because she was already half full. The grapefruit was not a trick, it was a gate. She placed it between herself and the rest of the meal, and it worked every morning without a word of explanation. Number 5, Melba toast and hot tea. Thin, dry, twice-baked Melba toast with a cup of unsweetened tea. For many women, this was the entire morning meal, Devonshire Melba toast in the long, narrow box, paper-thin rectangles dry as plaster that cracked when you bit down. The sound was half the experience. A sharp snap in a quiet kitchen, Lipton tea brewed in a cup, not a pot. No sugar, maybe a thin slice of lemon floating on top. Each piece of toast had roughly 15 calories. She ate 2, maybe 3 with her tea. The whole breakfast came in under 100 calories. But she did not think of it in those terms. She thought of it as light. The word calorie was not yet a household obsession. Eating lightly in the morning was not medical advice. It was common sense passed from mother to daughter like a recipe card tucked into a kitchen drawer. She did not need a nutritionist to tell her that less was enough. She had a mother who showed her, and her mother had a mother who never needed to be shown at all. 3 breakfasts in, and not one of them took more than 5 minutes to prepare. That was not a coincidence, but the speed hid something deeper. A relationship with food that had a built-in stopping point, and the next one proves it in a way that might surprise you. Something worth noticing about every one of these breakfasts. They were finished. A half grapefruit is done when the rind is empty. Melba toast ends when the last piece snaps. Cottage cheese on a bread plate has a visible edge. These women ate meals with a built-in conclusion. There was no bottomless bowl, no open bag on the counter, no family-sized box encouraging a second round, no bottomless mimosa brunch running until 2 in the afternoon. The portion was the container, and the container was the discipline. The average American breakfast today contains over 500 calories. In 1955, a typical woman's breakfast was closer to 150. Nobody was counting, the plate was just smaller, and when the plate was empty, breakfast was over. Number 4. The soft-boiled egg in the egg cup. A single soft-boiled egg served in a porcelain egg cup, eaten with a small spoon, sometimes with one piece of dry toast cut into narrow strips they called soldiers. 3.5 minutes in a small saucepan of boiling water, timed by the clock above the stove, or the same brass wind-up egg timer every kitchen had, the one shaped like a little hen. The egg placed pointed end up in the cup, the top cracked open with the back of a spoon, the yolk inside still soft, bright orange-yellow, not quite set. A pinch of salt from the glass shaker on the table. The toast cut into strips narrow enough to dip into the yolk running slow and warm down the bread. A daughter watching from across the table, learning without being told that breakfast did not have to fill the plate to fill you up. Eggs cost 62 cents a dozen in 1955. 1 egg and 1 piece of toast. Total cost, roughly 4 cents. 6 grams of protein. She was full until noon. 1 egg in a porcelain cup. It was not minimalism. It was not deprivation. It was a woman who understood that enough was a real number, and she met it every morning. Everything up to now came from a real kitchen. Eggs, fruit, toast, cheese. But by the late 1950s, something else appeared on the breakfast table, something that came in a can, and what happened next tells you everything about the road we have been on ever since. Number 3, the Metrical meal in a can. Metrical was introduced by Mead Johnson in 1959. It was a canned liquid diet drink. The first mass-market meal replacement in American history. Women drank 1 for breakfast instead of eating, an 8-ounce can with a plain label. It came in chocolate, vanilla, and butterscotch. It tasted like watered-down malted milk. 900 calories a day if you replaced all 3 meals, which was the recommended plan. A 4-pack cost about $1.59 at the drugstore. The can opened with a church key. The liquid was thin, chalky, lukewarm if you forgot to refrigerate it. By 1960, Metrical was a $90 million product. Pharmacies could not keep it stocked. Women carried the cans in their handbags. It spawned a dozen imitators. Sago, Figurines, Slender. Over the following decades, the concept paved the way for Slim fast, then ensure, then a $100 billion industry that has never stopped selling the same basic promise. Skip the meal, drink the can. The global meal replacement market hit $27 billion in 2024. Mitral did not replace breakfast. It replaced the kitchen. It told a woman that the egg, the toast, and the grapefruit she had been eating her whole life were not scientific enough. That she needed a laboratory in a can to do what a bread plate had been doing for free. And once that door opened, it never closed again. The can was the beginning of the end of trusting yourself to know what enough looked like. Number 2, the coffee-only morning. Millions of American women in the 1950s did not eat breakfast at all. They had black coffee. 1 cup, maybe 2, nothing else until lunch. They did not call it a strategy. They called it not being hungry yet. Maxwell House or Folgers, bought in a 2-pound tin for 89 cents, percolated on the stove in an aluminum wherever pot. The smell filled the house before dawn. It was poured into a ceramic mug, not a travel cup, and drunk standing at the counter while she packed school lunches and wiped jelly off a small face. No cream, no sugar for the women watching their weight. Maybe a cigarette with the second cup, back when that was what morning looked like, a second cup reheated on the burner. That was breakfast. She fed the children eggs and toast and cereal. She poured orange juice into 4 small glasses. She had coffee. By 11:30, she was ready for a light lunch. Her daily eating window, by modern definition, was roughly 8 hours. It was the exact protocol now marketed as intermittent fasting, sold through apps and coaching programs and $60 subscription plans. Today, it is a wellness movement with millions of followers and best-selling books. In 1954, it was just a mother who put 4 plates on the table before her own. She was not intermittent fasting. She was a woman with children who ate after they did. The diet industry now sells that instinct back to her granddaughter for $12.99 a month. Not one of these women stood in front of the refrigerator reading labels. Not one of them searched the glycemic index of a peach half. They ate simply because the world had not yet taught them to eat otherwise. The conflicting studies, the influencer diets, the guilt cycles, none of that machinery existed yet. They did not agonize over carbohydrates or time their meals around a workout. They were not more disciplined than we are, they were less distracted. And their waistlines showed it. But there was one breakfast that outlasted all the others. The one most women came back to, morning after morning, year after year. It was the simplest thing on this entire list. Number 1, black coffee and 1 piece of dry toast. 1 cup of black coffee, 1 slice of toast. White bread, lightly browned, a thin scrape of butter, or nothing at all. That was breakfast. 5 mornings a week, for years. Sunbeam or Wonder Bread, a single slice dropped into the Toastmaster. The 2 slot chrome model that sat on every kitchen counter in America. The lever pressed down with a click, the coil turning orange inside the slot, the smell of browning bread mixing with the percolator steam. A thin edge of butter from the butter dish, not the refrigerator, soft enough to spread without tearing the bread, or no butter at all, just dry toast and black coffee. Eaten standing up or sitting alone at the table in a house dress before the rest of the family stirred, the kitchen window still dark, the clock on the wall reading 5:45. Total cost, less than 3 cents. Total time, 2 minutes. She did not photograph it. She did not think about it. She finished it, rinsed the cup, wiped the counter, and started her day. She did this 6,000 mornings in a row. It was never once interesting enough to mention. That breakfast kept a woman at the same dress size for 30 years, not because it was a plan, because it was ordinary. No one had yet convinced her that breakfast was supposed to be an event. She ate enough to start the day, not to perform, not to optimize, not to post about. And then she moved on. The real secret was never the grapefruit or the toast or the cottage cheese. It was the size of the plate and the silence around it. These women ate breakfast alone, quickly, without commentary. No one applauded them. No one told them they were doing something remarkable. They were just getting through the morning the way their mothers had, and their mothers before them. The fact that we now need an entire industry to teach us what a small breakfast looks like is not a sign of progress. It is the measure of what was quietly taken away. The American weight loss industry is now worth over $72 billion a year. Her grocery bill for a week of breakfasts was less than $1. And somewhere this morning, in a kitchen with no phone on the counter, a woman is pouring 1 cup of coffee and making 1 piece of toast. She does not know she is doing anything unusual.
That breakfast table held the most powerful daily habit in the entire system. The simplest meal in the house carried the most weight. And what she served when the temperature climbed past 90 told the same story in a different season. Nothing about it was complicated, and nothing about it needed to be. The whole industry built on top of it exists only because that simplicity was never supposed to be remembered.
Number 18, the cottage cheese and canned peach half lunch. A scoop of cottage cheese on a single iceberg lettuce leaf. 1 canned peach half turned upside down on top. That was lunch. A complete summer meal for millions of American women from the late 1940s through the mid-1960s. Breakstones or seal test cottage cheese at 23 cents a pint. Del Monte cling peach halves at 27 cents a can. The cool wet curds against the sweet syrupy peach. A sprinkle of paprika on top if she was feeling fancy. Served on the good china with the window open and the fan turning overhead. Ladies' luncheons at the church basement served this on shredded lettuce with a single Ritz cracker on the side. Under 200 calories, high protein, cold straight from the icebox. No heat added to a kitchen that was already unbearable by noon. A 50-cent lunch that kept her full until supper and never once required a calorie chart. She did not call it a diet, she called it lunch. But the peach half was only the beginning of what came out of that icebox in July. What she drank alongside it has been almost entirely forgotten. Number 17, iced tea brewed in the sun. A glass-gallon jar filled with cold water and Lipton tea bags, set on the back porch steps in the morning sun. By noon, it was tea. No stove, no boiling, no sugar unless the neighbor brought some over. Lipton tea bags at 10 cents for a box of 16, a mason jar or a glass pickle jar rinsed clean, 4 bags dropped in, lid screwed tight, set in direct sunlight on the porch railing. The slow amber bloom through the glass over the course of a morning, poured over ice cubes cracked loose from the aluminum tray with the pull lever that stuck every single time. A wedge of lemon from the tree in the yard if she had one. 0 calories, no high fructose corn syrup, no plastic bottle. The sun made her tea and she never paid a cent for it. The global bottled iced tea industry is now a massive $28 billion powerhouse. The sun is still free. Number 16, the Jell-O mold with vegetables suspended inside. Lime or lemon. Jell-O dissolved in hot water, mixed with a tablespoon of white vinegar and a handful of vegetables. Shredded cabbage, grated carrots, diced celery, sometimes olives, poured into a ring mold and chilled until firm. Jell-O brand gelatin at 10 cents a box. The trick was the vinegar that cut the sweetness and turned it savory. The wet pop when the mold released onto the serving plate. The vegetables frozen mid-float inside that trembling green dome. A dollop of Hellmann's mayonnaise on top. Every church potluck, every Tupperware party, every backyard cookout from Maine to California had at least one on the table. The internet mocks these now. But a woman fed her family a cold, filling side dish that cost 12 cents and required no oven on the hottest day of the year. She was not confused, she was solving a problem. Number 15. Sliced tomatoes with salt, still warm from the garden, thick slices of garden tomato on a plate. Salt, sometimes a drizzle of vinegar, nothing else. sometimes the entire lunch on a piece of white bread with mayonnaise. Beefsteak tomatoes, Brandywine, Rutgers. Varieties bred for flavor, not for surviving a cross-country truck ride. Picked that morning and still warm from the sun. The seeds and juice running onto the plate the moment the knife went through. The crunch of coarse Morton salt. The smell of the vine still on her fingers. A tomato sandwich on Wonder Bread with Best Foods mayonnaise was a summer lunch that entire generations ate 3 times a week and never once thought of as a recipe. A grocery store tomato today has been engineered to survive 14 days in a shipping container. A garden tomato in 1955 was engineered to be eaten the same afternoon it was picked. Those are 2 different foods with the same name. Number 14. Deviled eggs kept cold on a bed of ice. Hard-boiled eggs halved, yolks mashed with Hellmann's mayonnaise, yellow mustard, and a pinch of salt. Spooned back into the whites, dusted with paprika. Set on a plate over a bowl of chipped ice at every picnic and potluck. Eggs from the backyard coop or 3 cents a piece at the A&P. French's yellow mustard at 15 cents. The sulfur smell when the eggs came off the stove. McCormick's paprika, a dime a tin, the deviled egg plate with its molded oval wells passed down from her mother, 12 perfect halves arranged in a circle, carried to the church social wrapped in a dish towel, balanced on the passenger seat with one hand on the plate and one on the wheel. She made them because they were cheap, filling, and could survive a hot afternoon on ice. She also made them because they were the first thing gone from the table at every gathering. That was the only review she needed. Everything so far came from the icebox or the garden, but some of the smartest summer eating happened at the 5 and dime lunch counter. What women ordered there would stun a modern nutritionist. Number 13. The drugstore lunch counter fruit plate. A plate of fresh and canned fruit arranged around a scoop of cottage cheese in the center, a sprig of mint on top, served at Woolworth's, Kresge's, and Rexall lunch counters for 35 to 50 cents. The chrome stools that spun, the laminated menu behind the napkin dispenser, cantaloupe balls, honeydew wedges, canned Dole pineapple rings, seedless grapes, a maraschino cherry on top. A glass of ice water at no charge. Women met their friends there on a Saturday afternoon. They ate cold fruit, talked for an hour, paid 50 cents plus a dime tip, and walked home lighter than when they sat down. A fast food salad today costs $9 and arrives in a plastic clamshell. It has never once been the reason 2 women sat down together and lingered. Notice what these foods have in common. Not one was invented by a company, not one had a jingle or a mascot. They were passed from one woman to another across a backyard fence, in a church kitchen, over a telephone cord stretched around the corner. The American food industry did not create the summer diet of the 1950s housewife. It destroyed it. Then it sold her the replacement at 4 times the price. Number 12. Cold beet salad with vinegar dressing. Boiled beets chilled in the icebox, sliced or diced, dressed with white vinegar, a pinch of sugar and salt, sometimes mixed with thin rings of raw onion, served cold all summer long. Beets from the Victory Garden plot that never stopped producing after the war ended. Or canned, Libby's sliced beets at 12 cents a can. The magenta stain on the cutting board and on her fingertips. The sharp tang of vinegar cutting through the earthy sweetness. A Pyrex bowl with a rubber lid on the top shelf of the Frigidaire all week. She spooned a serving onto each plate at supper time without asking if anyone wanted it. The same compound in beets, betadine, is now sold as a superfood supplement for $12 a bottle. She grew them in the same garden row her mother had planted. The beet did not need a rebrand. It needed a woman who knew what to do with it. Number 11. Frozen grapes eaten like candy. Seedless grapes washed, pulled from the stem, spread on a cookie sheet and set in the freezer. Eaten straight from the Tupperware bowl like candy. Thompson seedless grapes at 20 cents a pound in season. The frost forming on the purple skin the moment they came out. The crack when you bit down, frozen solid on the outside, icy and sweet in the center, the size of a marble, better than any popsicle. A handful filled you up because the cold slowed you down. No wrapper, no stick, no artificial flavor, just a grape that had been to the freezer and come back changed. A 60-cent bag of grapes gave her a summer's worth of frozen treats and not a single gram of added sugar. The ice cream and frozen novelty industry is now worth over $19 billion a year in the US alone. The freezer and a bag of grapes still cost nothing. Number 10. Cold cucumber sandwiches on white bread with the crusts cut off. Thin slices of cucumber on buttered white bread, salt and pepper, crusts removed, cut into triangles, served at garden club meetings and any summer afternoon when it was too hot to light the stove. Wonder bread at 20 cents a loaf, cucumbers from the backyard, cool to the touch even in the midday heat, sliced paper thin with a paring knife, a smear of softened butter, not mayonnaise. The butter sealed the bread so the cucumber juice would not soak through, the crust safe for bread pudding later that week, the crunch of cold cucumber against soft white bread, arranged on a plate with a paper doily underneath. It was not fancy, it was not poor, it was a woman deciding that lunch did not need to be complicated to be civilized. Number 9. Buttermilk drunk straight from the glass. Cold buttermilk poured from the carton into a tall glass and drunk as a meal replacement or an afternoon refreshment. Especially common in rural homes and across the South. Borden's or the local dairy brand at 15 cents a quart. Thick, tangy, cold. The white film it left on the inside of the glass. Some women crumbled cornbread into it and ate it with a spoon. That was a complete summer supper. The probiotics, a word nobody used in 1954, that kept digestion steady through the heat. Farmers drank it at noon in the field. Their wives drank it at the kitchen table at 2 p.m. while the children napped. A 15-cent glass of buttermilk contained more live cultures than a $6 cup of probiotic yogurt sold at Whole Foods today. She drank it because her mother did. That was reason enough. Look at what has not appeared on this list. No protein bars, no smoothie bowls, no meal kits delivered to the door in a cardboard box packed with gel ice. These women did not need a subscription to eat well in summer. They needed a garden, an ice box, and the knowledge that cold food is not lesser food. Somewhere along the way, we decided that eating simply was the same as eating poorly. That was the lie that cost us the most. Number 8, canned salmon salad on iceberg lettuce. A can of pink salmon, drained and flaked with a fork, mixed with mayonnaise, diced celery, a squeeze of lemon, salt, and pepper. Spooned onto a bed of iceberg lettuce. A complete cold supper for 2. Bumblebee or Deming's canned pink salmon at 29 cents a can. The key on the bottom of the tin that peeled back the lid in a spiral. The pink flakes broken apart in a bowl with a fork. Hellman's mayo, diced celery for crunch. A wedge of lemon squeezed over the top. High protein, rich in omega-3 fatty acids. A phrase that did not exist yet. And 0 time at the stove. The can sat in the pantry for months, ready whenever she was. 29 cents and it fed 2. The same salmon now costs $8 in a pouch with a wellness label. The fish did not change. The story we tell about it did. Number 7, watermelon with salt on the back porch. A whole watermelon chilled in a wash tub of cold water or set in a creek bed. Cut open on newspaper spread across the back porch. Everyone ate with their hands. The salt shaker got passed around. A black diamond or Tom Watson melon, varieties with seeds, dark green rinds, and flesh so red it looked like it was lit from inside. 79 cents for a whole melon at the roadside stand. chilled in a galvanized washtub filled with garden hose, water, and ice. The thud of the knife breaking through the rind, the long crack as it split open. Seeds spit off the porch into the grass, juice running down the chin and both forearms, the salt bringing out a sweetness that sugar never could. The rind saved and pickled in mason jars. Nothing wasted. The seedless, pale pink, shrink-wrapped quartermelon at the supermarket is not the same fruit. It has the name and none of the memory. Number 6, radishes eaten whole with butter and salt. Fresh radishes pulled from the garden, washed under the hose, dipped in softened butter, then in salt, and eaten whole. A common afternoon snack before summer suppers. Cherry bell radishes, bright red with white flesh. 5 cents a seed packet, and they grew in 3 weeks. The snap when she bit through the skin. The sharp peppery bite softened by the cold butter. The crunch that filled the whole mouth. A small dish of them on the supper table next to the salt cellar. French restaurants now serve radishes with butter and charge $11. American farm women were doing the same thing in 1952 for a seed and a pat of Land O'Lakes. She grew a snack in 3 weeks, pulled it from the ground with her bare hands, and ate it standing at the kitchen sink. No packaging, no barcode, no expiration date, just dirt rinsed off under the tap. Number 5, lemonade made from scratch in a glass pitcher. Fresh lemons, white sugar, cold water. Stirred in a glass pitcher with a wooden spoon. No powder, no concentrate, no can. 4 lemons at a nickel apiece, rolled on the counter to loosen the juice. Cut and squeezed by hand over a bowl, seeds caught between the fingers. A cup of sugar dissolved in hot water on the stove. Combined with the juice in a quart of cold water in a glass pitcher, not plastic. Glass so cold it sweated on the formica the moment she set it down, poured over cracked ice into a jelly glass. 20 cents a pitcher, enough for the whole family and whoever came through the screen door. A glass of country time powdered lemonade costs about the same and tastes like a memory of a memory. The real thing took 4 minutes and 4 lemons. That was apparently too much to ask. Every food on this list has something in common beyond cost or simplicity. They all required a woman to slow down, to stand at the counter and slice, to wait for the tea to steep, to let the jello set overnight, to pull the grapes from the stem one at a time. These were not fast foods. They were slow foods before anyone invented that phrase. And the slowness was not the price, it was the benefit. In a house with no air conditioning, in a kitchen that hit 100 degrees by noon. A cold lunch made slowly with her own hands was the closest thing to a vacation she ever got. Number 4, aspic, the cold savory gelatin with meat and vegetables. Consomme or tomato juice mixed with Knox unflavored gelatin combined with diced chicken or ham, celery, hard-boiled egg, and peas. Poured into a mold, chilled overnight, and turned out onto a platter. A full protein meal that never touched a burner. Knox gelatin in the red box at 10 cents a packet. Campbell's consomme at 15 cents a can. The amber color of the set aspic, clear as glass. The suspended cubes of chicken visible through the sides. The firm wobble when the platter was carried to the table. A neat slice served on a lettuce leaf with a spoonful of mayonnaise. Complete protein, vegetables, and collagen in one cold dish. Recipes appeared in The Joy of Cooking and the Betty Crocker Picture Cookbook. She made a cold roast dinner in a bowl and served it on a Tuesday in August. Nobody called it molecular gastronomy, they called it supper. Number 3, celery sticks, stuffed with pimento cheese or peanut butter. Fresh celery ribs cut into 4-inch sticks, the groove filled with homemade pimento cheese or peanut butter. Served on the cut glass relish tray at every summer gathering. Pascal celery, crisp and pale green. The cold snap when you bit through the stalk. Pimento cheese made from scratch. Sharp cheddar grated on the box grater. A jar of diced pimentos drained. Hellmann's mayonnaise, a few shakes of Tabasco, or Skippy peanut butter at 35 cents a jar, spread thick into the groove with a butter knife, arranged on the relish dish alongside green olives and bread and butter pickles. Children lined up for the peanut butter sticks. Mothers kept the pimento cheese for themselves. That relish tray was the center of the table before a single person on earth had ever used the word charcuterie. It cost $0.25 and fed the entire room. Number 2, cold fried chicken, wrapped in wax paper. Fried chicken made the evening before, chilled in the icebox overnight, and eaten cold the next day. At picnics, on road trips, at the lake. Not reheated, not microwaved, eaten cold on purpose because cold fried chicken is better. Crisco shortening for the frying, a whole chicken cut into pieces at 69 cents from the Piggly Wiggly, dredged in seasoned flour and fried the night before in the cast iron skillet while the evening air was cooler. Drained on a brown paper bag, set uncovered in the Frigidaire so the crust stayed firm. By morning, the skin had turned into something new, cold and dense and almost cracker-like. The fat had firmed up into pure flavor, each piece wrapped in cut-right wax paper, packed into a shoebox or a paper grocery sack, eaten with the hands, standing in the grass, sitting on a blanket, or riding in the back seat with the windows down and the warm air rushing through. She cooked at night so she would not have to cook in the heat the next day. She served it cold because cold fried chicken was better than hot. That was not a shortcut. That was 60 years of knowledge passed down from one cast iron skillet to the next. But there was one food that appeared on more summer tables than any other. It was so common, so ordinary that nobody ever wrote it down as a recipe. And it may be the most important food on this entire list. Number 1, the garden salad with vinegar and oil dressing from the backyard. Leaf lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, green onions, and radishes. All of it from the garden behind the house. Torn or sliced into a big crockery bowl and dressed with nothing but vinegar, oil, salt, and pepper. Served at supper every night all summer long, not the side dish, the meal. She walked out the back door at 5 o'clock and picked supper with her bare hands. Leaf lettuce pulled from the row, 2 tomatoes still warm from the afternoon sun, a cucumber the size of her forearm, green onions yanked up by the tops, roots snapped off, dirt rinsed under the garden hose. Sliced in the kitchen with a paring knife on a wooden cutting board worn smooth from years of use. Tossed in a big bowl that had been her mother's. Heinz apple cider vinegar, Wesson oil, Morton salt. The whole thing cost nothing because every leaf came from a 40 by 20 foot plot of dirt she had worked since April. Her children sat down to a meal grown entirely in the backyard and never once thought of it as special. It was just what was for supper. The average American now spends over $300 a month on groceries. A wellness influencer with 2 million followers just posted a summer salad recipe that costs $14 a bowl. Her grandmother made the same salad in 1955 for the cost of a seed packet and a bottle of vinegar. And it tasted better. And somewhere right now, a woman is standing at a counter slicing a tomato from her own garden. She sprinkles salt and eats it over the sink with the window open. She does not know she is carrying on a tradition. She just knows it tastes right.
The summer table was not a departure from the system. It was the same instinct dressed for the heat. But the food was only what went in. What she did with her body in the living room every single morning is what finished the job. She adjusted with the seasons the way her grandmother had, without a single article ever telling her to. And that instinct never once came with a price tag attached. Number 15. The kitchen chair squat. Women used a straight-backed kitchen chair as their only piece of exercise equipment. They stood up from it slowly. They sat back down slowly. Dozens of repetitions. Controlled, deliberate. A wooden Windsor chair or a chrome-legged dinette chair with a vinyl seat cushion. The kind from the Sears Roebuck catalog at $4.95. Feet flat on the linoleum. Hands on hips or extended forward for balance. Lalande demonstrated this in his first season on KRON television in San Francisco. Down for a count of 3. Up for a count of 3. The quiet creak of the chair legs on the kitchen floor. The burn in the thighs by repetition 20. No squat rack, no padded bench. Just a chair that went back to the table when she was done. She built the same muscles a gym now charges $40 a month to target. Nobody knew the chair was equipment. That was the point. Number 14. The towel resistance pull. A rolled bath towel used as a resistance tool. Pulled taut between both hands. Overhead. Behind the back. Across the chest. A Cannon or Dundee cotton bath towel rolled lengthwise into a tight rope, the texture of terry cloth gripping against itself. Lalande showed women how to create isometric tension by pulling in opposite directions. Arms overhead, pull apart. Behind the back, pull down. Across the chest, pull outward. The muscles shook by the third set. A bath towel from the 5 and dime cost 39 cents. The resistance band market is now worth over $400 million. The towel did the same thing. It just could not be branded. Number 13. Morning stretching before the family woke. Women rose 10 to 15 minutes before the rest of the household and stretched on the bedroom floor. Hamstrings, back, shoulders, neck. Every single morning, without exception. 5:45. The wood floor cold through a cotton nightgown, reaching for toes, rolling the neck in slow circles, pulling one knee to the chest, then the other. Lalande called flexibility the fountain of youth. He opened every episode with stretching. Women followed along in their bedrooms with the door closed, the quiet pop of a spine releasing after 8 hours of sleep. No yoga mat, no class, no instructor with a certification hanging on the wall. She did it before anyone else was awake because the rest of the day belonged to everyone else. Those 10 minutes were the only ones that belonged to her. But stretching was only the start of the morning. What she did next would surprise any modern personal trainer. Number 12. The deep breathing drill, structured. Deep breathing performed standing up, hands placed on the rib cage. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Hold. Exhale through the mouth for a count of 8. 10 repetitions. Lalande taught this on the air. Hands placed on the lower ribs to feel the expansion. He called oxygen the most important nutrient a person could take in. The belly pushed outward, not the chest. The slow, controlled exhale through pursed lips. Women stood at the kitchen window doing this while the Folgers percolated on the counter. The smell of fresh coffee and cool morning air through a cracked screen door. 2 minutes of stillness before the house came alive. Breathwork Studios now charge $25 a session for the same technique a housewife practiced free at the kitchen sink in 1954. Number 11. Walking as transportation. Women walked to the grocery store, the post office, the school, the church. Daily walking was not a fitness decision. It was how errands got done in a one-car household. A mile each way to the A and P. Paper bags of groceries carried on the return trip. Lalande said a brisk daily walk was worth more than any routine performed inside a gym. Flat shoes, cotton house dress, 2 to 4 miles a day without ever calling it a workout. The weight of a 5-pound bag of gold medal flour in the crook of each arm. Calves built by sidewalks. forearms built by grocery bags. She never once called it cardio. She called it going to the store. The fitness industry did something very specific in the 1970s and 80s. It separated movement from daily life. These women never made that separation. The kitchen was the gym. The errands were the cardio. The housework was the strength training. They did not exercise and then live. They lived, and the exercise was built into every hour. That wall between fitness and living was not progress. It was a product launch. And it made a lot of people very rich. Number 10, the floor exercise routine from the television. Women followed along with Lalanne's televised floor routines. Leg lifts, bicycle kicks, flutter kicks, side-lying leg raises, all performed on the living room carpet. The Jack LaLanne show aired on weekday mornings. Women cleared a space between the sofa and the coffee table. A folded bedspread or a braided rug served as padding. Lying on one side, lifting the top leg 20 times, then switching. The slow burn in the outer hip. LaLanne counted out loud on the screen. His German shepherd, Happy, lay beside him on the set. She followed along in her house dress and bare feet on the carpet. No Pilates reformer, no studio with mirrors on every wall. A woman on the floor of her own living room, keeping time with a man on a 9-inch screen who believed she was strong enough already. Number 9, the posture rule. Standing and sitting with the spine straight, shoulders back, chin level. Practiced constantly. Corrected by mothers, by teachers, and by LaLanne himself on every broadcast. He demonstrated posture checks on almost every episode. Stand against a wall. The back of the head, the shoulder blades, the buttocks, and the heels should all touch the surface. Walk away from the wall and hold that line. Girls practiced with a book balanced on their heads. A hardcover copy of Better Homes and Gardens sitting level on the crown. If it fell, you were slouching. The particular embarrassment of the book hitting the floor in front of your mother. Posture was not a wellness trend. It was manners. It was how you showed the world you respected yourself without saying a single word. But posture was only the frame. The real strength came from something no one would ever think to call a workout. Number 8, housework as strength training. Scrubbing floors on hands and knees, beating rugs with a wire beater, wringing wet laundry through a hand-cranked wringer, kneading bread dough on a floured board. The physical demands of running a 1950s household were equivalent to a full-body workout performed every single day. A galvanized steel mop bucket and a wooden scrub brush on the kitchen floor. The rotary motion of feeding a soaking wet cotton bedsheet through the wringer on a Maytag washer. Pushing a Bissell carpet sweeper across the front room, hauling a rug over the clothesline and beating it until the dust stopped rising. Shoulders, forearms, core, and legs engaged for hours. A study from researchers in the United Kingdom later confirmed that 1950s housework burned more calories per day than most modern gym routines. She never wore athletic clothing. She never tracked a single rep. She was stronger than most women half her age are today. And she never set foot inside a gym. Number 7. No snacking between meals. 3 meals a day, nothing in between. LaLanne preached this constantly. The kitchen closed between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 5:30. No granola bars in the pantry, no protein shakes in the refrigerator, no vending machines at the corner. A glass of water if you were hungry between meals. LaLanne himself ate 2 meals a day for most of his adult life. The modern snack food market was growing, but options were far fewer, and home pantries were rarely stocked with processed snacks. The idea of a mid-morning snack would have been considered pure indulgence. The American snack food market is now worth over $150 billion a year. It sells food to fill the hours that used to be empty by design. Discipline was not a product you could buy. It was a habit you kept. And it did not require a subscription. Every one of these rules has something in common. Not one of them required a purchase. A chair, a towel, a floor, a pair of flat shoes, 3 meals, and a television set she already owned. The global fitness industry is now worth over $96 billion. It sells solutions to problems these women never developed because they never stopped moving long enough to need a solution. Number 6. Cold water on the face and neck. Splashing cold water on the face, neck, and wrists every morning. Lalande promoted cold water exposure as a circulation booster and a natural source of energy. The white porcelain basin in the bathroom. The shock of cold well water first thing in the morning. Cupped hands splashed hard against the cheeks and the back of the neck. The gasp. The sudden clarity. No ice bath, no cryotherapy chamber at $200 a session. Just the cold water tap and the nerve to use it at 6 in the morning. Lalande took ice-cold showers every single day well into his 90s. The biohacking community now pays for cold plunge tubs that cost $3,000. She had a faucet and a washcloth. Number 5. The waist twist. Standing with feet shoulder-width apart, arms extended straight out, twisting the torso left and right in a controlled rotation. 50 to 100 repetitions. Lalande performed this on nearly every episode. Feet planted on the floor, arms out straight at shoulder height, the torso rotating while the hips stayed fixed. The oblique muscles working against the momentum with each turn. Women did this in the kitchen doorway using the frame as a visual guide. The soft whip of a cotton house dress at the hips with each twist. A waistline maintained without a single sit-up or a single dollar spent. She called it her waist exercise. It took 2 minutes. She did it while the bread was in the toaster. 2 minutes between meals. 10 minutes before the family woke. Everything fit inside the life she was already living. But the next rule is the one that would keep a modern fitness influencer up at night. Number 4. Leg lifts at the kitchen counter. Standing at the counter, holding the edge for balance, and lifting one leg straight behind her or out to the side. 20 repetitions per leg. Done while waiting for water to boil or bread to rise. Hands gripping the rolled porcelain edge of a Hoosier cabinet or a Formica countertop. One leg extended straight back, held at the top for a 2 count. The glutes and lower back engaged with every lift. Lalande called these standing leg lifts and demonstrated them with a chair back on the show. Women adapted the move to whatever surface was waist height, the kitchen timer ticking on the stove, dinner already in progress. Fitness happening inside the task, not beside it. She never left the kitchen. She never changed her clothes. She used the minutes that were already there. Number 3. Gardening as full-body exercise. Digging, planting, weeding, hauling, bending, lifting. Women maintained kitchen gardens and flower beds that demanded sustained physical effort several times a week. A hand trowel and a pair of cotton gloves. Kneeling in the dirt beside the tomato stakes in July. The repetitive squat and rise motion of weeding a 30-foot row of green beans. Hauling a galvanized watering can from the spigot to the garden and back. 8 pounds of water per gallon. The smell of warm earth and marigolds planted at the row ends to keep pests away. Arms brown to the elbow from the afternoon sun. Forearms corded from gripping wooden handles all season long. The garden fed the family and built the body at the same time. Nobody separated the two. That separation came later when somebody figured out how to charge for each one individually. Number 2. The Lalande Jumping Jack. Lalande popularized the jumping jack as a daily cardiovascular exercise for women at home. 2 minutes every single morning. No equipment, no space beyond a clear patch of floor. Arms overhead, feet apart, slapped back together. The sound of bare feet on linoleum. Lalande performed jumping jacks at the start of every episode. He was doing them on local television in 1951, at a time when most doctors in America were still telling women that vigorous exercise was dangerous for the female body. 2 minutes, 120 seconds. Heart rate elevated, blood moving, the body fully awake before the eggs hit the skillet. He told women they were athletes on television in 1951. Millions of them believed him. That was the real exercise. Jack Lalande did something no fitness company has done since. He gave it all away, free, on broadcast television. 5 days a week for 34 years. No paywall, no membership tier, no premium content locked behind a monthly fee. He believed fitness was a right, not a product. The industry that replaced him believes the exact opposite. That is why his name is fading from memory, and that is why it deserves to be said out loud. Number 1. She did it every single day. The real rule beneath all the others. Consistency. These women did not exercise 3 days a week with rest days in between. They moved all day, every day, without recovery weeks, without tracking apps, without thinking of movement as something separate from being alive. Lalande exercised every morning for 2 hours from the age of 15 until the day before he died at 96. He never missed a single day. The women who followed him did not miss either, not because they were disciplined in the way a modern fitness program defines that word, because their lives did not allow stillness. The floors needed scrubbing. The garden needed weeding. The children needed chasing down the block. The walk to the store was not optional. Movement was not scheduled into the day. Movement was the day. The last episode of the Jack Lalande Show aired in 1985. He looked into the camera and told the women of America that they were stronger than they knew. Then the commercial breaks got longer. The equipment advertisements replaced the exercises. The gym memberships replaced the kitchen chair. And a generation of women forgot that they already had everything they needed. The jumpsuit disappeared from the screen. The chair went back under the table. But the floor is still there. The towel is still in the linen closet. And so is she. No equipment, no membership, no spandex. Just a woman and a television and 15 minutes before the day started. And when she wanted something sweet after dinner, she did not skip dessert. She made one that kept the whole system running. 15 minutes was all the system ever asked of her, and she gave it without ever calling it exercise. That consistency did more than any program built decades later ever managed to replicate. Number 15. Knox Gelatin Whip with Fruit. Unflavored. Knox gelatin beaten to a foam with a rotary hand beater, then folded with canned fruit cocktail. Fewer than 70 calories a serving. Knox gelatin in the red box. 10 cents at the grocery. Del Monte fruit cocktail at 29 cents a can. The gelatin dissolved in hot water, then chilled until it thickened to the texture of raw egg whites. Then the rotary beater, minutes of steady cranking until the gelatin tripled in volume. A pale, trembling cloud of almost nothing. The fruit folded in gently, spooned into dessert dishes and chilled again. It looked like something from a tea room. A woman could serve this at a bridge club luncheon and no one would know she was watching her figure. That was the whole point. Discipline looked like hospitality. That dessert required patience with a hand beater, but the next one required something even harder to come by in a 1950s kitchen. Restraint with the sugar bowl. Number 14. Baked custard with nutmeg. Eggs, milk, a whisper of sugar, vanilla, and fresh nutmeg. Baked in a water bath, a standard Betty Crocker recipe with the sweetness cut by 2/3. 3 eggs from the icebox, a cup of pet evaporated milk thinned with water, 1 tablespoon of sugar where the original recipe called for 3, a scrape of whole nutmeg across the fine grater. That smell alone could fill a kitchen. Pyrex custard cups set in a roasting pan of hot water, into the oven at 325 degrees, 35 minutes. You knew it was done by the jiggle. Tap the edge of the cup and the center should tremble but not wave. A dessert so plain it announced nothing. That was the sophistication. She did not advertise her effort to stay slim. She served it warm with a little nutmeg on top and never said a word about it. Number 13. Junket Rennet Custard. Junket brand rennet tablets dissolved in lukewarm milk, set at room temperature. An enzymatic dessert almost nobody alive remembers now. The little box with the Danish girl on the front. 10 cents at the A&P. 1 tablet crushed with a spoon and dissolved in lukewarm milk, not heated. The rennet enzyme did the work, coagulating the milk into a soft custard without cooking. Vanilla or chocolate flavor. Ready in an hour on the kitchen counter. Barely 60 calories. A strange cool wobble when you tilted the dish. Not quite custard. Not quite pudding. Something in between that has no modern equivalent. Junket was marketed directly to mothers and dieters through the 1950s. By the mid-70s, it had nearly vanished from American grocery shelves. A whole category of dessert, enzyme set rather than cooked, simply ceased to exist. Number 12. Canned peach halves with cottage cheese. A single peach half from a can of Del Monte or Libby's, drained, filled with a scoop of cottage cheese, dusted with cinnamon, the heavy syrup poured off, sometimes the peach rinsed under the tap, Breakstones or Seal-Test cottage cheese, cold from the icebox. 1 rounded scoop dropped into the hollow where the pit had been. A shake of McCormick cinnamon from the tin. The whole thing served on a leaf of iceberg lettuce on a salad plate. Fewer than 100 calories. That sweet and savory combination that confused children but satisfied mothers entirely. This was lunch and dessert on a single plate for thousands of American women who never once used the word calorie out loud. She put it on her good china and called it a salad. Number 11. Prune Whip. Stewed prunes pureed and folded into stiffly beaten egg whites, baked or chilled. A Depression-era holdover that survived well into the 50s as a diet staple. Sun-sweet prunes simmered until soft, about 15 cents a box, pushed through a sieve or mashed with a fork until smooth. Egg whites beaten stiff with a rotary beater. The two folded together carefully with a few drops of lemon juice, spooned into Pyrex custard cups, baked for 15 minutes at 300 degrees or chilled in the frigid air. Light as meringue, dark as molasses, about 80 calories a serving. It sounds unthinkable now, a prune dessert served to company. But she made it, and her family ate it, and nobody questioned a woman who could make something that plain taste that good. 5 recipes in, and every single one came from ingredients already in the pantry or the icebox. No special trip to the store, no special section of the grocery aisle. That was the whole architecture of diet eating before the diet industry existed. These were not diet recipes the way we use that word now. There was no brand name on them, no spokesman, no before and after photograph. A woman simply made less of something sweet and served it on her best dishes. The discipline was invisible. The restraint was the recipe. That entire philosophy was erased the moment somebody figured out how to put a trademark on the word light. Number 10. Homemade sugar-free gelatin molds. Plain Knox gelatin set with unsweetened fruit juice instead of sugar, poured into decorative copper or aluminum molds. This was years before Jell-O ever released an artificially sweetened product line. Knox gelatin dissolved in hot water, then topped off with cold grapefruit juice or unsweetened pineapple juice from a Dole can. Poured into a ring mold or individual dessert cups. Chilled for 3 hours. Then the ritual of unmolding, the tap, tap, tap of the mold on the counter, the slow release, the gleam of light passing through the amber gel, served on a plate lined with lettuce leaves. Close to 0 sugar. Almost no calories to speak of. When Jell-O reformulated their Deserta diet gelatin line through the 50s, they were selling back a technique women had already been doing at home for free. The kitchen had solved it first. The factory showed up later with a price tag. Number 9. Angel Food Cake. 12 egg whites, cream of tartar, sugar, and cake flour. No butter, no oil, no egg yolks. The original low-fat cake, baked in a tube pan and cooled upside down. Swan's down cake flour sifted 3 times through a hand sifter. A full dozen egg whites brought to room temperature on the counter. The steady whir of an electric mixer or the long minutes of cranking a rotary hand beater. Cream of tartar at 5 cents a tin from the spice shelf, the agonizingly slow fold of sifted flour into stiff meringue. The tall tube pan inverted over a bottleneck to cool so the cake would not collapse. About 70 calories a slice. A cake made almost entirely of AIR and patience. Every woman in America knew Angel Food was the diet cake. Nobody ever said so out loud. You baked one and the neighbors complimented your technique. The figure watching stayed between you and the recipe card. Number 8. Unsweetened homemade applesauce. Apples peeled, cored, and simmered until soft. Mashed with cinnamon. No sugar added. Served warm or cold as dessert in place of pie. A bag of Cortland or Macintosh apples in October. Peeled with a paring knife at the kitchen table. Quartered and dropped into a heavy pot with an inch of water. Simmered on a low flame until they collapsed into themselves. The kitchen windows fogged with sweet apple steam. Mashed with a potato masher right in the pot. A shake of cinnamon. Spooned into mason jars and stored in the icebox. About 50 calories a serving. The children ate it alongside pork chops on a Tuesday. Mother ate it in place of the pie she did not bake. It was not really a recipe. It was what apples did when you left them alone long enough. The simplest dessert in America, and the one that never needed a single word of justification. That was a dessert that doubled as preservation. The next recipe doubled as something else entirely. Medicine. Number 7. Hot lemon water with honey. A cup of hot water with fresh lemon juice and half a teaspoon of honey. Sipped after supper as the sweet course. Counted as dessert in many diet-conscious households of the era. The kettle whistling on the stove. A sun-kissed lemon cut in half on the cutting board. Squeezed into a ceramic cup. Half a teaspoon of sous bee honey stirred in from the jar. 15 calories. Sipped slowly in the living room after the dishes were done while the family watched Gunsmoke on the Philco. The warmth of it in both hands, the tartness replacing the craving for something richer. It was not deprivation. It was a woman deciding to end her day with something warm and simple. The dessert was the ritual itself, not the sweetness. Number 6. Frozen banana slices. A ripe banana sliced into rounds and frozen on wax paper in the freezer compartment. Eaten straight from the freezer like candy. A Chiquita banana at 10 cents, sliced into half-inch coins on the cutting board. Laid flat on a sheet of cut-right wax paper on a cookie sheet. Frozen solid in the freezer compartment of the Frigidaire. The dense, cold sweetness of a banana round on the tongue. The way it turned almost creamy as it thawed in the mouth. Children did not know these were diet food. They fought over the last ones in the tray. She solved dessert with a banana and a freezer. No recipe card, no brand name, no company involved at any step. That is exactly why nobody remembers it now. Notice what none of these 15 recipes required. A box with a celebrity face promising results. A meal plan, a membership card, a weekly weigh-in at a strip mall meeting room. The woman was her own authority. Her kitchen was her clinic. Her own good judgment was the only system she needed. The diet industry did not replace something that had failed. It replaced something that was working perfectly well. And then it charged admission. Number 5. Whipped evaporated milk topping. A can of Pet or Carnation evaporated milk, chilled until ice crystals formed, then beaten with a rotary beater until it peaked like real whipped cream. Half the fat, half the calories. A small can of Pet evaporated milk placed in the freezer compartment for about 90 minutes. Ice crystals just forming at the edges, poured into a chilled mixing bowl, beaten hard with the rotary beater. A tablespoon of lemon juice added to stabilize the foam. It rose and thickened into soft peaks that held their shape on a spoon. Dolloped over gelatin molds, over fresh berries, over a slice of angel food cake. The illusion was nearly perfect. She could put a white cloud on top of any plain dessert and transform it into company food. The whole secret was a 14-cent can and a cold bowl. Number 4. Baked apple with cinnamon. A whole apple, cored but not cut through the bottom, filled with a pinch of sugar and cinnamon. Baked in the oven until the skin split and the juices ran dark. A Rome Beauty or Jonathan apple. Cored with a twist corer. A teaspoon of sugar and a heavy shake of cinnamon dropped into the hollow. A pat of butter the size of a thumbnail. Set in a baking dish with a 1/4 inch of water. Into the oven at 350. Baked until the skin crackled open and the kitchen filled with the smell of caramelized apple and warm cinnamon. About 90 calories, served in a bowl with a spoon. A whole baked apple on a plate looked generous. It looked like a real dessert. That was the craft, making something small look like enough. Number 3. Dietetic canned fruit. Commercially canned fruit packed in water instead of heavy syrup, sold under brand names that almost no one remembers now. Tilly Lewis, Tasty Diet, and Diet Delight, 2 of the first mass-market diet food products in American history. Tilly Lewis launched her Tasty Diet line of canned fruits in 1952 out of Stockton, California. Peaches, pears, and fruit cocktail packed in water with saccharin sweetener. About 40 calories a serving compared to 120 in heavy syrup pack. Sold at the A&P for 35 cents a can, a nickel more than regular. The labels were plain and simple. The taste was sharper, cleaner, without the heavy syrup fog that masked the fruit. Tilly Lewis was one of the first women to build and run a major American food company. She created an entire diet food category before that category had a name. Today, almost nobody knows she existed. The diet industry she helped invent forgot her first. That was the first commercially packaged answer. But the 2 recipes that outlasted everything else on this list never needed a factory or a label. They needed a stove, a bowl, and 10 minutes. Number 2. Meringue cookies. Egg whites beaten stiff with sugar, dropped by the spoonful onto a baking sheet, and baked at low heat until dry and crisp. Some women called them forgotten cookies because they went into a hot oven that was then turned off and left closed overnight. 2 egg whites at room temperature, half a cup of sugar beaten in 1 tablespoon at a time, a drop of vanilla, a drop of white vinegar to hold the peaks, spooned onto a greased cookie sheet in small rounds, into the oven at 250 degrees for 40 minutes, or into a 350-degree oven, then the heat shut off and the door left closed until morning. By dawn, they were done. Crisp shells that shattered at the first bite and dissolved on the tongue. About 10 calories each. Sometimes a scattering of chocolate chips folded in when company was coming. The powdery sweetness inside the shell. The faint crack when you bit through. She made cookies from egg whites and AR, and they tasted like the real thing. No child ever asked what was missing from them. That was the highest compliment a diet recipe could ever earn. Number 1. Plain gelatin with fresh fruit. Jell-O or Knox gelatin set with fresh or canned fruit. The single most common diet dessert served in American homes from roughly 1945 to 1970. Ubiquitous, universal, and now completely gone from the American supper table. A box of Jell-O at 7 cents, or Knox unflavored gelatin at a dime dissolved in fruit juice, strawberry, lime, cherry, orange, dissolved in a cup of hot water. A cup of cold water stirred in, fruit folded through, banana slices suspended in lime, mandarin orange segments drifting in orange, crushed pineapple settled through cherry, poured into the copper ring mold, into the Tupperware mold, into the cut glass dessert dishes from the wedding set that only came out on Sundays. Chilled for 3 hours, unmolded onto a plate, the cool spoon cutting through the surface, the clean wobble, 80 calories or fewer, served after every weeknight supper in millions of American homes for the better part of 30 years. Today, the average American woman spends over $700 a year on diet products, programs, and supplements. The gelatin mold in her grandmother's kitchen cost 7 cents and worked better than any of them. This was the diet dessert of the American 20th century. A woman made it so often she did not need the recipe card anymore. She made it so automatically it was not even a decision. It was just what came after the pot roast and before the dishes. And then one day it stopped. The molds went to the garage sale. The dessert dishes went to the back of the cabinet. And the simplest, cheapest, most effective diet dessert in American history vanished from the table, replaced by a 100-calorie snack pack that cost $4 and never worked half as well. 15 desserts. Not one of them required a diet book, a nutritionist, a subscription, or a credit card. They required a stove, a hand beater, a mold, and the quiet belief that a woman already had everything she needed. Most of it was already in her kitchen. And somewhere right now, a woman is opening her grandmother's recipe box for the first time in years. The index card is stained and faded. Lime gelatin, fruit cocktail, chill 3 hours. She reads it once, sets it on the counter, and reaches for the pot. Every practice in this video, from the unspoken rules to the dessert recipes, cost almost nothing. No subscription, no membership, no appointment, no permission from an expert. The pattern is not nostalgia, it is self-sufficiency replaced piece by piece with dependency. These women maintained their weight using knowledge, rhythm, and ingredients that were already in the kitchen. The modern replacement is a shopping cart with a monthly fee attached. The knowledge was never lost. It was replaced. A breakfast that cost 12 cents was turned into a subscription plan that runs $40 a month. A living room floor was turned into a gym membership. A recipe box was turned into an app. These things never stopped working. We just stopped being told.